Robert Emmons, one of the most prominent researchers and writers on the topic of gratitude, defines gratitude as a sense of wonder, thankfulness, and appreciation for life. And when you put it that way, you can really see how practicing gratitude can really shift your perspective and help with your overall well-being and happiness. Gratitude allows us to savor or really soak in a moment that we're having with a person or a place, or it allows us to really savor something from our past. And that savoring activity will actually increase your overall mood and your sense of happiness in the present moment. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Permission to Love podcast. I'm your host, Jerry Henderson, and as always, I'm so grateful that you make your time to be here. Today, we're going to be talking about happiness. It's somewhat of a continuation from a previous episode that I did. I've heard from many of you that you'd like me to talk more about what is that 40% of what makes up our happiness. So just as a quick review, when we think about our overall happiness pie, 50% of that pie comes from our biological set point or our genes, what we were born with. Now that may sound like a bummer, but it's actually good news because it helps us let go of the shame if we're a person who just doesn't seem to be quite as happy as other people. Now, another part of the pie is our circumstances, and it only makes up 10% of our overall happiness, which I know is a surprise for many of you and a surprise for most people as well, because we actually will spend 90% of our effort on that 10%. We're trying to move the needle in things like more income or better jobs, or the things that we would categorize as our circumstances, like where we live, et cetera, et cetera. The interesting thing is the research is really clear that only makes up 10% of your overall happiness. Now, the last part of that pie is our habits, our daily routines, the things that we do on a regular basis. And that actually makes up 40% of our overall happiness. And the great thing about that, as we discussed in the previous episode, is that that 40% can help mitigate the 50%, the set point that we were born with, and it can also change the way that we look at our circumstances. Now, over the next few weeks, I'll be discussing what makes up that 40%. Many of you have been curious about that. So what are the habits? What are the daily routines that you can engage in that can increase your overall happiness and help mitigate those other areas? And today, it may come as no surprise that the first thing I'm going to be talking about is gratitude. The research is so very clear on this, that one of the things that you can do to have a happier life, to increase your overall subjective well-being, is to practice gratitude. However, there's some key caveats about this, and we're going to discuss that towards the end of this episode. Now, before we jump into that, I want to discuss the two types of overall well-being and how they contribute to our happiness. The first is hedonic well-being, which many of us might be familiar with when we think about happiness, which is the pursuit of pleasure, things to make us feel good. A great meal, having great sex, all of those things that we think about when we're seeking pleasure. Now, sometimes when we think about seeking pleasure, we put it in the negative category. Not all pleasure seeking is bad. There is a good part of pleasure seeking that can add to your overall well-being, but it only contributes to a certain portion of your overall well-being. Now, the second part that makes up our overall well-being is eudaimonic well-being, and that's what Aristotle described as having meaning, purpose, or having a full life. So it's happiness or well-being that comes from living our lives well, or a life well lived. And a lot of the happiness activities that we're going to be talking about in the next episodes have to do with that eudaimonic well-being, or the activities that contribute to a sense of a richer life. And gratitude is absolutely essential to increasing our overall eudaimonic well-being and then contributing to our overall well-being or our overall state of happiness. So let's talk about gratitude, and let's first define it. Robert Emmons, one of the most prominent researchers and writers on the topic of gratitude, defines gratitude as a sense of wonder, thankfulness, and appreciation for life. And when you put it that way, you can really see how practicing gratitude can really shift your perspective and help with your overall well-being and happiness. Because expressing gratitude is more than just being thankful or saying thankful for the things that are in your life. People who are grateful, as we just shared, are more happier, but they're also more energetic, they're more hopeful, and they also report having more frequent positive emotions. People who express gratitude have a tendency to be more helpful, to be more empathetic. They're more likely to be spiritual or religious. And they're also more forgiving and less materialistic than other people are. And finally, they're also less likely to be depressed, anxious, neurotic, and lonely because that attitude of gratitude is having a holistic impact on their entire system. Now, I want to be clear that the research is also clear that there's a bi-directional relationship between some of the things I've shared and gratitude. Gratitude is found to be present in people's lives who have those characteristics that we just talked about, but there's also research that those characteristics, like spirituality, can help increase the levels of gratitude. So what we're talking about here is a holistic relationship of our lives and gratitude and its impact in our lives. So what are some of the ways that gratitude actually does impact our happiness? Well, first, gratitude allows us to savor or really soak in a moment that we're having with a person or a place, or it allows us to really savor something from our past. And that savoring activity will actually increase your overall mood and your sense of happiness in the present moment. Well, the second thing is gratitude can really help with coping with things like stress and trauma. Now, I'm not saying becoming thankful for the pain or the stress or the trauma that we've experienced, but what I am saying are finding ways to turn those experiences into something that can become meaningful in our lives. And what gratitude can do is it can shift our focus from being so lasered in on the pain in our life to begin to shift us to see the beauty that exists in our life despite the pain that we've experienced. Now, I'm not talking about denial, but what I'm talking about is shifting our energy or our focus. And you've heard me say this a lot. Where our focus is, that's where our energy is, right? What we give our attention to, that's where our energy goes. And what we give our energy to is what grows in our life. And so if you find yourself always noticing things in your life that are negative, that are painful, that are stressful, it might be because you've become prone to do some selective filtering around those negative things. And selective filtering is basically that process where we give our attention to the things that are important to us, and negative things might have become important to your brain because you keep looking for them and you keep talking about them and you keep reliving them. And so all of that activity around seeing the negative, ruminating on it, is telling your brain that that's something that's important for you. And so your brain's going to keep looking for it. And it's developed a selective filter that sees now more negative things than positive things, because your brain doesn't think that those positive things are important to you because, one, you're not looking for them, two, you're not really feeling them, talking about them, and living in the moment with them, or three, because you might be making excuses as to why you don't deserve it. You might be carrying the fear of when it's going to be taken away from you, so your brain doesn't allow you to make it a positive association with those positive events. And another really fascinating piece of research shows that those who express gratitude are less likely to have traumatic memories resurface and the emotions that go along with that. Now, once again, I'm very clear on this. I'm not talking about faking it. I'm not talking about denial. I'm talking about a tool called gratitude that can help you manage and can help mitigate those negative experiences that we've had. Now, gratitude can also help you shift from a fixed mindset, which is this lack of growth mindset that keeps you stuck, to a more growth mindset. Why? Because you're seeing the positive things that are in your life, you're noticing them, and that allows you to look at life differently and expands you and opens you up to new experiences and allows you to come at life from a position of a growth mindset. Gratitude has also been shown to increase our resilience. When we experience something negative, as we talked about before, gratitude can help our overall resilience on how we can handle those things in our life and continue to move forward. Another thing that gratitude does that contributes to our happiness is that it will move us to do acts of kindness and service to other people. And research is clear that one of the key things that can help your overall happiness is doing acts of kindness or helping and serving other people. And how does gratitude do that? Well, the research is clear that as we recognize the blessings that are in our life and the things that other people have done for us, it motivates us to want to give back to others, to do the same things for others that have been done for us. And it also allows us to get into a position of seeing our abundance. And when we're in a position of abundance, we want to share that. We become more generous. And the last thing I'll talk about and how it increases our overall happiness is it'll actually increase our self-esteem or our sense of self-worth. And it can do this in 3 ways. Number 1, when you begin to practice gratitude, you'll begin to notice the things that other people have done for you. And when you begin to see the things that other people have done for you, it allows you to see that you're worthy of people doing good things for you. It increases your sense of self-worth and being loved. The second thing is when you start to express gratitude for your own accomplishments in your life, something that you've done, and you become thankful about having that, or the fact that you put the effort in doing that, and you're grateful for yourself, that begins to boost your self-esteem because you see that you are actually capable of doing things. And the third thing that expressing gratitude does to help boost your self-esteem is that you are seeing the good things that are in your life. And if you have good things in your life and you're beginning to notice them and appreciate them, your brain and your body begins to pick up the signal that you must be worthy of good things. Why? Because you're paying attention to them now. And as you pay attention to them and you see that there are good things that surround you all the time, you can then begin to make the association that you do deserve good things, that you are worthy of good things, that there's not anything wrong with you. But as long as all you're noticing is the negative and the bad, you'll be thinking that you deserve those bad things, that that's what you're worthy of because that's the only thing that you see around you, and that there must be something wrong with me because I'm experiencing all of this negativity. Once you begin to shift your focus to what is good in your life, you'll begin to make the opposite association of the events and the circumstances that are happening in your life. So now with an understanding of just what a huge impact gratitude has in our life, what are some things that you can practice to increase your overall sense of gratitude? Well, some of the things I'm going to share you've probably heard of before, but I'm going to encourage you to maybe do them in a bit of a different way. And I'm going to use the first one as an example. You've probably heard of writing out 2 to 3 things that you're grateful for each day. And I've shared about doing that as well, but the research is becoming more clear that we need to add some variety to how we go about expressing our gratitude. Because what we don't want to do is turn it into a chore or a have to, because the have to of having to do it can actually decrease the emotional connection in doing it. So some of the research is showing that if you struggle with feeling a real connection to writing out your gratitude list and you're doing it every day and it's becoming somewhat monotonous for you, to switch it to doing it 1 time a week. And when you do it during that 1 time a week, really connect with it. Set some real time apart to do it. Get into an atmosphere and an environment where you can actually concentrate and think about the things that you're grateful for. Because the key to expressing gratitude isn't simply in how many times you do it, it's in the way that you do it, the emotional connection, the authenticity, the meaning behind it as you're expressing the gratitude. So that practice of writing out 2 to 3 to 5 things that you're really grateful for each week or each day, whatever works for you, is shown to increase your overall sense of gratitude and increase your happiness. The second thing you can do is write a letter of gratitude to somebody else. And of course, when I say letter, it can be email, it can be text, or however you want to do that. But it is a meaningful practice to express gratitude to another person. And there's no real rules around this other than to sit down, take the time, and genuinely express gratitude to somebody who you're genuinely grateful for. Now, you can obviously just tell the person that you're grateful for them, and that has a huge impact as well. But there is something about sitting down, taking the time to emotionally connect with writing out why you're grateful for that person. And the great thing about writing a letter of gratitude to somebody is it activates something inside of us that really allows us to see why we're so grateful for that relationship and to not take it for granted if we are. And the second thing it does is it has an impact on that individual. And you never know the impact that it's going to have on them. It can be something that they really, really needed to hear in that moment. They might be in a low moment and they get that letter from you and it can boost their overall happiness, which in turn usually causes them to express gratitude for you sending that letter, and you create somewhat of a gratitude loop between the two of you. Now, the third and final thing I'll talk about is to simply sit with feelings of gratitude. Now, this is for those of you who aren't writers and you can't see yourself journaling, you can't see yourself writing that letter of gratitude yet, but you still want to practice gratitude. What you can do is find yourself a quiet place, Close your eyes, begin to visualize something, someone, or some place that you're grateful for, and then emotionally connect with that moment and allow a sense of thankfulness and gratitude to rise up in you. Allow yourself to become thankful for life, that you're breathing, that you're here, that you exist. Finding that way to emotionally connect to something that you're grateful for and then sit with it. Just be with it. And the research is clear. This will have a tremendous impact on your overall well-being, and it will increase your happiness as you practice it over time. So once again, research is absolutely clear on how big of an impact gratitude has on happiness. So if you're tired of noticing all the negative things that are in your life, or feeling like you don't deserve anything good, and you're carrying around all of those feelings, I encourage you to practice gratitude. Try one of those 3 exercises, stick at it, and see what happens in your life. And just a quick reminder, if you've not yet had a chance to follow or to subscribe to this podcast, take a moment to do that, as well as turn those notifications on, because that'll keep you updated on when new episodes are coming out. And if you know somebody who could benefit from this episode, I want to encourage you to share it with them, because you never know the difference that it can make in their life. Now, if you need resources to help you on your journey, I want to remind you to check out the show notes in this episode, or simply go to my website at jerryhenderson.org. I've got a lot of resources that I've created. You can pick up a copy of my book from there. You can download a free assessment and 30-day guide to a healthier relationship with yourself. You can also learn more about my coaching program and other resources that I've created to help you on your journey. Well, thank you for joining another episode of the Permission to Love podcast. I'm always so grateful that you take time out of your busy schedule to be here. And I want to remind you, as always, you are worthy of beautiful, good things in your life. And you are worthy of giving yourself the permission to love yourself. And you are worthy of your own love.